Baby. Look at the cute baby. Look at the cute baby. Beep, beep. Look at the cute baby. This is Harvey Knits.
Say hi, Harvey. Can you wave? There's a lot to take in.
He's waving. I saw it. I was going to help him, but he did.
He does. He
Hey,
does do
everybody.
a little wave.
I love Brazil overtime. He's okay. I'm so glad he's here with us today. But hey, family, we got a big thing to talk about today. If you're like me and you used to be hip and cool, you may not be aware of the fact that Kanye West's brand new album, Jesus is King, will likely debut at #1 on the Billboard top charts. The top of the Billboard charts.
Yeah, it came out Friday at noon. I don't know how Billboard charts work, but it came out Friday at noon, and all weekend it's been on iTunes. It's been in the top 10 songs. 9 out of the 10 were all from this album, so it's been trending everywhere. And Billboard's results will come out soon, but it's everywhere.
And now, we talked about this for like an hour and a half on the live show. And many people would be shocked to see this and go, wait, are you kidding me? On Moody Radio, you talked about Kanye West for an hour and a half? Oh, yeah, we did. And it's because, I mean, I didn't know a ton about it, admittedly, so gratefully the Lord just ordained it that Janelle's out today and Hannah Knits is in. You've heard the whole album.
Yeah, well, and I listened, Kanye's first album, College Dropout in 2004, was like the anthem for me in high school. Like, I listened to that album a lot. Driving me and my sweet brother to Christian high school. And, so I've loved Kanye, like, as an artist, for a long time. So this is just an interesting conversation because it combines Kanye, who I've just appreciated musically, and Jesus. What better topics could there be?
So now, for those who aren't familiar, he's been a mess, like, in a variety of very explicit ways over the years, right? Can you give the folks a reminder of that before we talk even about our reflections in the show and what to think about all this?
Yeah, I would just say that Kanye has really been like a picture of just a secular artist. I mean, he musically is very talented, but his words and lyrics have been just around what you would expect in this kind of field, in like a very secular rap world. A lot of really poor things of women, lots of talk of sexuality, drinking, just kind of as out there as you can get in the world. And then publicly, I think there's just been a lot of situations where he has made some very bad comments, poor judgment, irrational. We talked about on air jumping on the stage, grabbing the microphone from Taylor Swift when she won an award and saying she didn't deserve it, and being, I think only maybe 2 years ago, maybe less, he had this whole rant about slavery was a choice and, black people need to get it together. And I mean, he's just been a picture of someone who is not a person of wisdom.
And a person who's wholeheartedly of the world.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And, I mean, just to paint the picture fully, musician, also a producer, so he's producing with all of these other huge artists making music. Also married to Kim Kardashian, so has lived in this Kardashian LA world, has a fashion line, so he's just been everywhere in the most secular in the world way that you could be.
And he also has been a picture of why it's good to get mental health support, because he almost in public had his bipolar breakdown.
Yes.
And about a year ago, or less than a year ago maybe, he ended up in psychiatric care, right? Which was a turning point in his life.
Yeah, so he had to seek treatment, I think was pretty much at like an unstable place of just like his mental health as a whole. So yeah, I don't know all the details of it. It hasn't been shared super publicly, but at some sort of treatment facility, working through a lot of his mental health and bipolar, he said that it was one of the first times in his life that he was just quiet and had this space to just think and be, and there was a Bible in the room, and started reading it and writing down verses, and has come to know Jesus and the truth of the gospel.
Yeah, by the way, special hello to Harriet, who's here for the very first time. She said,
Hey!
I wanted to see the baby.
There's the baby. He's crawling on the floor now, just as precious.
Also, Jennifer, a good reminder from her about, yeah, what you're just saying, how he really has been a picture of untreated mental illness. And yet, now, you've got the quotes with you. I've heard of some people before doing Christian albums, and I'm a skeptic, so I've looked at him and gone, I see what you're doing here. You know we have a lot of money, and so you're just trying to make money on us. But every song, dare I say, is theological?
Oh, yeah. So he put out this album called Jesus is King, just came out on Friday. I've been listening to it all weekend, and I printed out all the lyrics because I couldn't get over the depth of the songs. It reminds me of when you're reading through a book, like a C.S. Lewis book, and you read a few sentences and you kind of have to stop and think. As I was listening to Kanye's songs, I was like, wow, I really need to think about that. So I printed out all the words. And yeah, one of the most powerful songs on there is called God Is, and I think it just gives you a reflection of this change in Kanye, because one of the things we didn't mention yet, Brian, is that Kanye would call himself Jesus, because he said he was as close to God as you can get. He said he was Jesus, and has been very, I don't even know what word to use for that, sacrilegious, has been very
idolatrous?
Yeah, I mean, people would say he's one of the most arrogant people in the industry, even though he's super talented, that he just thinks he's God.
Well, and hence he got up on stage, took the mic from an award winner, and said, this was really what I deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, he was saying someone else should have won.
Oh, sorry.
Beyonce, I think.
I'm obviously not up with the pop culture.
Either way, so that was who he was. And in this album, this is from the song God Is, which is on Jesus is King, which came out on Friday. Man, it's so good. I can't keep it to myself. I can't sit here and be still. Everybody, I will tell the whole world until the whole world is healed. King of kings, Lord of lords, all the things he has in store. From rich to the poor, you're welcome through the door. You won't ever be the same when you call on Jesus' name. Listen to the words I'm saying. Jesus saved me, now I'm sane. And I know God is the force that picked me up, that Christ is the fountain that filled my cup, that God is alive, he opened up my vision, giving me a revelation. It's not about a religion. Jesus brought revolution. All the captives are forgiven. Time to break down the prisons. Every man, every woman. There's freedom from addiction. Jesus, you have my soul. All my idols, let them go. All the demons, let them know. This is a mission, not a show. Woo!
Wow.
There's so many good words like that.
Give us more.
Man, he has one song called Water. Hold on, my baby wants me. He has one song called Water that I think is pretty reflective of a baptism. He says, clean us like rain in the morning, take the chlorine out of our conversation, let your light reflect on me. It's water, pure water. The storm may come, we'll get through it because of your love. Either way, we crash like water. Jesus, flow through us. Jesus, heal the bruises. Jesus, clean the music. Jesus, please help us. Jesus, please heal. Jesus, please forgive. Jesus, please reveal. Jesus, give us strength. Jesus, make us well. Help us live. Give us wealth. Jesus is our safe, is our rock. Jesus, give us grace. Jesus, keep us safe. And I mean, there's another one called Selah. Sorry, do you want me to keep going?
Well, quick thing to interject.
Just so many good truths.
Two very important points from Yvonne, who's watching. She says, hey, I really appreciate this conversation because I've been reading about this stuff with Kanye. It's good to hear the facts and research from you, Hannah. She said, and her second point was that she really likes my new faded haircut. And I don't blame you, Yvonne. I think it really does look great. Fred says, good morning. Just popped in to say hi. What's up, Fred? Mike wants to know, why is the Christian community so afraid of talking about uncomfortable topics just to discuss, not necessarily agreeing? Kudos to you guys for discussing. Yeah, we were pointing out earlier today, as we hit pause for a quick second here, that I was hoping to be able to go to Christianity Today, Christian Post, and I love those organizations, or some other Christian periodical, Baptist Press.
And just see, what are believers saying? How are they reacting to this huge thing in pop culture that is all around the gospel?
And I think they probably are doing what we did this morning with you, which was they're going to get together in the boardroom and go, what do we do with Kanye?
Yeah.
Because it's based on the lyrics you've even read to us. It's difficult to even carry around skepticism. And based on his actions, with where he's been going around the country doing church services,
Yeah.
ticketed church services that are free, as I understand, right? Are
I
people
don't
paying
know
to
if
get in?
he's charging. I think he's charging it because you have to reserve a ticket, so I think there's a price to it.
But there's been people preaching at it, like
Yeah,
legit
he's doing
pastors.
Sunday services where there's essentially like 100 people on stage singing these songs, and people then coming on stage and sharing the story of the gospel. And he's doing this instead of what he would typically do, which is like sold out concert venues.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's doing these smaller ones kind of all over that are it's church.
And so,
It's crazy.
Well, and so our question generally live on the radio show, which is still the one we want to discuss with you today, because this is a big story. And if you haven't heard about it yet, you will hear about it. Just ask any person who's into hip hop around you, or ask any kid, really, if it's a #1 Billboard hit. Jennifer Jones is. We want to know what do we do with Kanye in the church? Like, what do we do with him now? Jennifer is saying she's still worried about his mental health.
Mm-hmm.
How do you followed his career better than the rest of us, likely? So what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I guess I think we can still say, like, I want him to be mentally healthy and make sure he's seeking whatever treatment is needed for that. But that doesn't take away or change anything of, like, but we are celebrating the beauty of a man changed by the gospel of Jesus. You know? I mean, there's things that I still am working on and still need to grow in, and for some of us that could be our mental health, but no matter what, I mean, the good news is that we're saying, man, this is an example, a public example of someone who was the sinner. You know, he's talked about since coming to know the Lord, he's been very open about the porn addiction that he struggled with. He said he saw his first Playboy when he was 5 years old. And has been a slave to pornography ever since then. And he's now saying, this is what Jesus is freeing me from. I mean, he's showing this beauty of Jesus in action. It's incredible.
I've actually seen you get emotional about this a few times.
I have been emotional
and I'm not
about
saying
it.
that in a critical way. So
Yeah.
Can you explain what's the source of your emotion about a Kanye West album, about Jesus is King?
I think there's two pieces about it that really make me emotional. One is just as someone who, I've always been very fascinated with pop culture and have been probably invested or engaged in what's going on in pop culture, in celebrity, in music, more than maybe the average believer. Even at times feeling like, is this okay that I enjoy this so much? Do I need to put up different boundaries that so much of this that isn't Jesus focused has consumed pieces of me, you know? And because of that, I have this appreciation for Kanye West just as an artist, and I've seen so much of his life. And I mean, I think just 2 years ago when Time Magazine did the top 100 most influential people in the world, Kanye West was in there, like number 20 or something. Like, this is a man with power, influence, money. I mean, everything. And for him to do this radical transformation, I can't even explain. It makes me emotional because it reminds me of the power of Jesus in the gospel. Like, that is amazing. That is amazing. That is what Jesus in the gospel does.
Why does it remind you of that?
Because it's like it's like watching it live. Like, we've had so many people who have said, like, this reminds me of Saul turning into Paul. And it's like, you can Google Kanye's past, mistakes he's made, lyrics he wrote, songs that he just came out with 2 years ago, and then you listen to this album, and it brings me to tears because it's like, that is what Jesus does.
I'm sorry, keep going.
I think the second piece that has made me personally emotional is I am Kanye. Like, I am going through a transformation in this year with my understanding and my relationship with Jesus. And to watch this happen so publicly and see who he was and now who he is because of Jesus, I just keep thinking, God, this is the same change that you invite all of us to and that you're doing in my life. Like, I've just never enjoyed time with God as much as I am now. And it's like I'm understanding what we talked about on air a little bit, Brian, this like Zoe life, this like deep, meaningful, purpose-filled life that Jesus gives us when we're in this relationship with him. And something about watching Kanye go through this, as I personally have gone through so much growth and change and push and pain from the Lord this year, it just feels, I got all the feels about it, you know?
Tamar, I love when Tamar stops by. She said, I find it interesting when someone, famous or not, claims their faith. It's rarely accepted as a positive thing, especially among believers. We have no idea how the Father's dealing with him and what ripples may come as a result of his confession. I love that brother and pray he continues in his faith despite the naysayers. Jennifer chimed in again and said, hey, I completely agree with Hannah. The comment above about mental health was in response to the comment about mental health. She says, I believe he has experienced a change. I think the church has to be careful not to push him away.
Yeah, and Brian, we talked about on air, one of Kanye's songs is called Hands On, which I think is like literally a letter to Christians. You think it is too, Harvey? He thinks so too. And he said, I told the devil I'm going on strike. I've been working for you my whole life. There's nothing worse than a hypocrite. Change, he's not really different. He didn't even get permission. He asked for advice, but they dissed him. I said I'm going to do a gospel album, but what have you been hearing from the Christians? They'll be the first one to judge me, make it feels like nobody loves me. I deserve all the criticism you've got. If that's all the love you have, then that's all you've got. To sing of change, you think I'm joking. To praise his name, you ask what I'm smoking. Yet, I understand your reluctancy, but now I have a request. Don't throw me up. Lay your hands on me. Please pray for me. I mean, in that song, Kanye is saying, like, I get it. I see why you're skeptical. Like, I was the chief of sinners. But this is what God's done, and Christians, please join me. Like, pray for me.
I'd love to hear your response to Mark O'Neill. He said, so I have so much to say about this topic. For many years, I've written him off as an artist and actively told friends to stop listening to him because his music was so very sacrilegious. Especially the Yeezus thing. I mean, it's so sacrilegious.
I mean, he had an album called Yeezus where he was calling himself Jesus. And he was actually scheduled to come out with one this year called Yandi, like saying he's Gandhi. But he canceled it because he came to know Jesus.
And see,
so yeah.
I think you can actually respond to this effectively based on what you know. He said, this guy Mark said, I would love to believe him that he's given his life over to Christ and he's truly sincere. My biggest issue at this moment is that he should probably have to pull all his other music that has contradictory messages to the gospel if he truly wants to show he's giving his life to Christ. What say you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. He had an interview with Apple Music about his album coming out. And
this way, just a touch, friend.
Oh, sorry. Should I move back here?
Sure.
Or forward?
Well, it doesn't.
Okay.
Either way is fine. You're just towards the edge of the shot. People want to see your face.
Here I am. So he had this interview with Apple Music where he was asked, will you ever perform your old music again? Like, if this is so different for you, will you ever sing this old music and these words that are so counterproductive to what you're saying now? And Kanye said, would you go into if you went into an Apple store, would you see an iPod 3? No. Like, that's old. We don't need the iPod 3 anymore. Like, this is the new Apple products. This is what you're looking for. And he said, that's the old me. That's not who I am anymore, and I won't perform that music. He said, God can use all things to make them for him, and I'm not that. I will not perform that music anymore. So.
And I actually, I know where Mark is coming from on that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your comment, Mark. I think a case could equally be made for the opposite, that he should keep his old music. And here's what I mean. When the Lord gives us a picture of stuff he's done in people's lives in Scripture,
Yeah.
he doesn't erase the bad stuff. In fact, it's the bad
so
stuff
interesting.
that actually enhances the gospel message. The whole story of Saul and his conversion, the preview to that is detailed examples of him actually not only holding the coats when Stephen was stoned to death, but of actively going out to arrest and persecute believers. that wasn't erased upon his conversion. In fact, that enhances his story as a believer. Look at
That
David.
is interesting.
And David's failings, how those are not erased. Samson's failings are not erased. Matthew
Yes.
was a tax collector. And he
Yeah.
invited him to a crazy party afterwards.
You're right. And if you think about some of the biggest opportunities or ways that we can share the power of Jesus in the gospel, it comes from that, Brian. Like, it comes from saying, this is who I was. And, I mean, good news or bad news, because of the internet, you could spend the next 8 hours of your life looking up all the bad things that Kanye has done. You know, like, it's all there, it's all chronicled, it's all very public. But, you know, in this new song, this one, Selah, he says, they say the week starts on Monday, but the strong start on Sunday. Won't be in bondage to any man. John 8:33. We're the descendants of Abraham. We should be made free. John 8:36. To whom the Son is set free is free indeed. He saved a wretch like me. If you're woke, then wake up. Everything old shall become new. The leaves will be green, bearing fruit. Love God and our neighbor, as written in Luke. The army of God, we are the truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jennifer,
Woo!
Jennifer threw in a good caveat. I think she's right that I think one of our prayers for Kanye needs to be that he be discipled.
oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm trusting God's going to deliver that. I know I've seen some interviews with some prominent pastors who have preached at his Sunday services, who have said that his conversion seems genuine, and I hope one of them comes around him and disciples him. I think that's important too. And I think that we need to recognize too, there's a big difference between saying, you know, hey Kanye, welcome home. Look, you're in the family. And there's between that and going, look, Kanye West is a brand new convert. Let's make him our spokesperson now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think there's a dramatic difference between that, and we
I think that's a
don't need to
great point.
conflate the two. I mean,
Right.
we don't have to make him go, everyone, listen now to Kanye for your theology, but we
Right.
can say, welcome home, brother. You're
We
welcome.
can, and we can celebrate and pray for the fact that when we opened this by talking about his album debuting on pace to be #1, when you talk about the statistics of how many people have listened to this album, he also came out with an IMAX film called Jesus is King. I think that shows the process of him recording this and making this music. That sold $1 million of tickets this weekend in just select IMAX theaters. He's doing these services. I mean, he is closely connected to some of the most powerful people just like in the world. And if you're saying that man, now all he wants to do, he said, I have to pull that quote up, that his whole mission right now and the only thing that he focuses on is sharing the gospel. Like, that is something that we as believers would have prayed for and thought was like this crazy wish that could never happen. Like, could you imagine if someone in Time's Top 100 of one of the most influential artists who's connected to all these people, that when new music comes out from this artist, the world stops. And every expert to Jane Doe on the road is listening to this album, and it is about the story of Jesus. That's amazing. Kanye says, I've spread a lot of things. There was a time I was letting you know what high fashion had done for me. I was letting you know what Hennessy had done for me. But now I'm letting you know what Jesus has done for me. I'm no longer a slave. I'm no longer a slave to the music industry. I'm a son now, a son of God. I'm free.
Wow. It's like, I'm
It's
embarrassed.
amazing!
I'm almost embarrassed to say, because I've been a believer a lot longer, like, you said that better than me, dude. And you haven't known Jesus that
I know,
long.
and Brian, we talked about on air, like, there's a piece of us that's like, oh man, like, is this legit? Like, what do we do with this? Like, I know how crazy Kanye was. And I was saying to you, Brian, like, if I had an album come out that reflected my whole life right now, and there were 11 songs on it, how many of those songs would be about Jesus? Like,
I'm
if
embarrassed
I
to
was
say it wouldn't be all
interviewed,
11.
if I was interviewed and said, like, give me, like, what your life is about right now, would I only talk about the gospel? Gosh, I'd like to think that I would, but I don't know if I'm there. And, like, Kanye is there.
How many of his songs were specific?
All
about
11, guys. Every 11. All of them. Listen, this song was called Jesus is Lord. There was 3 lines to the song, just repeated over and over. Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess, Jesus is Lord.
So
That
that's
was
a
the whole
song
song.
that over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, every single one of them. It's just mind-blowing.
By the way, shout
He
out
does
to...
have a song that talks about Chick-fil-A, though. Did you hear that one?
Yeah, that one's a little cheesy, but...
But the...
You have to qualify that now that you said it. Like the lines, I'm going, really? We're rapping about Chick-fil-A now?
I mean, but the second half is about Jesus being his king. I'll have to find it. But he does say, you're my Chick-fil-A, my number one with the lemonade.
By the way, shout out to Justin Crone. Love seeing ministry leaders joining us on here, brother.
Hey,
May God
welcome.
bless what you're doing. Mervat Najjar said, you are on point. We are all Kanye.
We are Kanye.
He
I
just
know.
has a gift that's public. Heather wrote in and said, maybe believers are doubtful because we're all worried that if it's not authentic, the world will be watching and critical of Christians.
Here's what
I think that is one of our fears.
it is,
Heather's
but
right.
but let's walk that out. Let's say hypothetically that Kanye says he's a believer, has this conversion. We as the church embrace him. We celebrate it. We say, this is what grace is about. This is the truth of the gospel. This is what Jesus does. He takes you from this to this. We celebrate this and we praise the name of God. Let's say that then he goes back to not believing in God. What will people say about how Christians reacted to that? Like, how will that be a negative that we were encouraging and exciting about what Jesus did? Let's play it the other way. Let's say that instead we say nothing. We're reserved, we're skeptical. How will the world see that? Like, if we're saying that what happened in Kanye can't be real, we're saying the Bible is a lie. Like, this is a picture of the gospel, and I think our piece in that is to celebrate it even without the ending being promised.
Yeah.
It's like we celebrate what the gospel is and what it looks like in lives.
And that's the that's the distinction.
Woo! It's awesome!
Well, but that's what you've taught me today, and that's what I want to walk away with. Marissa is agreeing. Thank you, Marissa, for your comment. She's saying that her concern, and it's a rightful one, is we can't look at him as a leader.
Yeah.
And I say, don't. We shouldn't. So here's what we do, very simply. Welcome home.
Yeah.
So glad you're in the family of
Kanye,
God.
welcome.
And we can, because
It's
he's going to
amazing.
watch this, right? Yeah. Hey, Kanye, what's up?
Brother, I love your songs.
But, I mean, welcome.
Yeah.
And we can say that enthusiastically, and then we can say, look, if God can save Kanye and God can save me, he can save you. It's a perfect opportunity to share the gospel. We don't have to worry if we don't make him into the next spokesperson for American Christianity.
No.
But we can certainly cheer for him. Because
Yeah.
he has legit professions of faith.
We can cheer it on, Brian. We can be excited about it. And I think his song that he's asking for prayer, hands on. I mean, I was telling Caleb yesterday, we were driving home from my girl Harper's birthday party. And I was saying, you know, I never thought there would be a time in my life where I was praying for Kanye West, but here I am.
Yeah.
Because knowing his influence, I mean, he has lived in the music industry and in this culture of the world for so long that it's not, yes, I want to put him up as this leader. It's like, I want to be praying for him so fiercely that God will meet him in this with such sweet intimacy and closeness and fulfill him as he walks into this land where people aren't going to take this well. But you know what's crazy? His music is still being downloaded and listened to more than any other music.
Yeah.
Just like every other Kanye album. It's crazy.
It is on pace to be the #1 album right now, and it's all about Jesus.
Isn't Jesus crazy? No one could have predicted this one, I'll tell you that.
And yet, as I mentioned on the show too, I think it's true that, I mean, wouldn't it be like God
Yeah,
to use a guy like Kanye?
I know.
I think one of the reasons he chose Paul was because how much of the opposite of the gospel he represented.
Yes. Which
You know what I'm saying?
is an exact description of Kanye. I mean, claiming to be God, breathing with arrogance, making not wise decisions, and really celebrating the things of this world that are ugly and sinful. That's been who he is.
So, Kanye, if you're watching, you know, let us know. We'd love to have you on the show.
But
you know?
genuinely,
But genuinely, Hannah would love to meet
we
you.
celebrate you. Like,
No,
we
we do.
are so excited
Yeah.
about what Jesus Christ can do. And, like, thank you for being bold enough. Honestly, Brian, I think what you and I talked about, honestly, bolder than we are, to be this straightforward about who you are and what the gospel is. It's amazing.
It's inspiring, and I would say it's going to sound self-serving because it partially is, but that's not the reason I'm saying it. If you click share on this, this is your opportunity to, in a really non-confrontational way, share with people what the gospel is about. The gospel is taking a guy like Kanye and making him new again.
And that's what happened with me.
And that's what happened with me.
Like, that is the story of Jesus, is like, I was that person. And he gives life. He gives a life that's meaningful and deep and purpose-driven and life-changing. And we get to see that on the front stage of pop culture, but we get to see it in each other's lives. It's the coolest thing.
So click share, you can put something like, hey, if God can save me and Kanye, or Kanye and me if you're a grammar police,
Either one, we're real flexible over here.
he can save you too.
It's amazing.
And so please do click share to that. I can't thank Hannah Nitz enough for all the extra research she did for our discussion today. Thank you for bringing a cute baby to make it even better. Like, how could you resist sharing this? Look
I
at,
had to feed him crackers to keep him entertained.
how could you resist? Look at, he's wearing his crackers.
I'm gonna need to vacuum this floor before I leave for sure.
How could you not share this video? God bless you, family. So glad you're with us today. Hit share. Thanks for your contributions. And
Say
praise
bye.
God for what he's doing in Kanye West's life.
More crackers.
See you.